welcome everyone to the next episode of Ignite That Light. This is episode 10, Embracing Self-Care and Sparking Positive Change. We have a wonderful guest today, Amber Champagne at Champagne's Brain on X. And before we get started, want to make sure that everyone knows to like, subscribe, do all the things. We're located on all the podcast services, or at least the two big ones, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you check us out. Leave comments, do the usual, make sure you find us wherever you can. We're also going to be streaming. Obviously, we're streaming live, or we will be streaming live on November 7th. So make sure that you are, watching this, and tell your friends as you're watching this, have them watch as well. Grateful for everyone's time today. And again, super grateful to have Amber Champagne, Ignite That Light. The mission of this podcast is to motivate, inspire, and connect more closely, more deeply with others. And I couldn't think of a better guest to be a part of this podcast, our season 1 finale. Amber, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And I'm so honored to be the finale of your first season. Truly, that's amazing. I hope this does awesome things for you. I know it's going to.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, no, I have the light here now officially, and it's in the studio. We're making big moves here, making big changes, and again, I'm just super grateful to have you here. And I do think that this podcast is having an impact on others, and the only way I can really know that is by hearing people either through their feedback on X or in comments on the YouTube page or on X. So make sure, again, I know that you've listened, you've watched, you're aware of it, but I'm hoping that this continues to inspire other people. Thank you.
Oh, it will for sure.
Yeah, and today's topic, we have two topics, and because we couldn't decide, and that's perfect for a season finale. You're gonna get a double whammy. You're getting two for the price of one. Embracing self-care and sparking positive change. So everyone who's listening gets both. And again, I'm just super grateful for you to, again, be able to talk about these two topics and to, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, super excited. And you always get a lot when you get something from me, because that's just how I am. So here we go.
You're an overachiever, Amber. That's what I was going to say. I was on my mind before we even started recording. I was like, I'm going to throw in the word overachiever because I think that's a perfect description of you. Yes. You're in a bunch of spaces. You're interviewing people as well. You have your interview series going. You just got back from a vacation, and I'm like, you're doing all these amazing things all at the same time. I'm like, how does she do this as one person? You're like, you're doing as one person what 10 people couldn't do. So overachiever is the perfect description.
It totally is. And I don't know that it's a good or a bad thing. It's just how I am. So
there you go. No judgment. But yeah, before we get started, Amber, I wanted to let you have the floor for a minute and just tell people who maybe aren't familiar with you, because I'm super familiar with you. We've been connected now for at least 2-3 months at this point, it feels like. Yeah. Tell people about you, a little bit about your message and your mission on X, because that's, I think, where we initially interacted, and let people maybe learn more about you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, my mission on X is really it's quite simple. I share what I know to help you grow. I came up with that recently because it really does encapsulate all of the things that I do. So What I like to do is I like to take all the experience that I have and help others with that experience, but in really fun and positive ways. And through also sharing people's stories and human experiences so that people can get different perspectives of things. So I think if you look at just my spaces on X, you'll see kind of what I'm about in that. On Sundays, I do an interview series that allows you to see something about the human experience from a different perspective that's not yours. And then on Mondays, I do a skills and experience space for growth and self-care, obviously, because I own a self-care apothecary, holistic wellness. I'm a licensed esthetician. I'm a clinical herbalist. I mean, it's my whole life. I own a skincare line, my whole life, right? So I want people about this. And so that's Mondays. And then on Saturdays, I do an improv space where I actually, it's super fun and funny and silly. But what it's really doing is it's helping people to adapt quickly to change. It's helping people to learn communication skills, collaboration. I mean, improv helps to do so many things. So I have a lot to offer in terms of sharing like human fundamental foundational skills, because I not only did that in a past life as a senior national educator and global content creator for a $2 billion cosmetics company, and then for a tech company thereafter. But also it's like, it's just innately inside of me to want to do these things and want to learn in these ways. I always have wanted to do that, and I've had to do that too. Just with my neurodivergence, I've had to like learn a lot of different things about human fundamental skills. And I've trained thousands of people in person across the country. I've trained tens of thousands of people through educational content. So I have the knowledge and wisdom and experience to share with people. And I do that, and I give them this free wisdom solely so that I can also greedily share my message of self-care with people.
That's perfect.
Because I want people to take care of themselves. So I kind of trap you with my knowledge, and then I like stick you with my message, which is like, go take care of yourself.
Perfect. That's perfect. That's a perfect segue. It really is, and I appreciate you sharing that. It's exactly it. I mean, your posts are always about that topic, or at least they tend to lean into the self-care realm, and so that's a perfect segue for what we're talking about today: embracing self-care. And when I think about self-care, if you would have asked me this question 5-10 years ago, I think I would have been a little more, I don't know, I would have been a little more dismissive of it, I guess. I would have been a little less willing to actually embrace that idea, right? Because like, hustle culture especially is so powerful. And I know you have a story to tell about that, on at least one I know. But the idea of like wanting to pursue these great heights in business and wanting to go far. And to me, like that always was like, of course, like that's the thing that you're supposed to do. Like everyone is supposed to go that route. But more recently, I've started to kind of realize, and thanks to you as well, like I've started to learn more about self-care and how important it is to the human body. And I was curious to know, like, how would you define self-care, and what do you think makes it so essential?
Yeah, so it's I think first and foremost, you're not the only one. If we asked many people 5 or 10 years ago what they thought about self-care, I think a lot of people would be dismissive. And I think we've done a good job of getting it to the forefront in some aspect, but we're still lacking a lot, especially in America, in terms of how we're doing it and how we're accepting it. So you're not alone. And that's why I'm on that mission, right? Because I'm like, hey, I love it. So let me tell everybody about it. I think that self-care is, it's a holistic approach to caring for yourself. And so there's a lot of aspects of you that you need to pay attention to in order to give yourself proper self-care. And those include nutrition, exercise, mental health and mindset, spirituality, stress management. There's a lot that goes into it. So it's not just like a froofy thing that it does come off as, right? It's like the idea of like, oh, just go and get a manicure and you'll be good. No, I mean, that's good. Maybe go do that if that's something you want to do, but it's not it. It's very holistic, because it's all about the complete being, the mind, body, and soul. You have to take care of all of it. And that can sound overwhelming right off the bat, which is why I constantly remind people that they need to take very small steps. Whoa, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm like, today I have been a mess. I had to like put myself on mute like 14 times in spaces today. I'm like, sorry guys, I'm like dying. Anyway,
it's totally okay, Amber. Take your time.
Yeah, like trust me, I know. I'm just like, let's go on a little tangent there. Okay. So in order to really take care of yourself, you have to do all of that stuff. And when people hear that, it can be really overwhelming, because they feel like they need to do so many things that they're maybe not doing because they likely aren't, right? And that's just the nature of it. And so I like to remind people that they need to take really small steps to get there, because taking small steps over time will compound to lots of bigger steps, right? So yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the idea and definition that I have for self-care. And of course, then that just lends itself to the answer of why it's essential. And that's just because it's your entire being, right? It's
Yeah,
everything that you are. And everything that you are trickles into all of your relationships and all of the things that you're trying
absolutely.
to do out into the world, and how you live your life and the quality of your life. And truly, I mean, that's at the end of the day, you have nothing if you have no quality of life. Like, that's just in reality, right? I mean, and that doesn't mean that you have to have a quality of life of like an able-bodied person. I'm not coming from that aspect, because I know that there's people that have different situations and circumstances that they're in. But there's things that everybody can do regardless, because even again, mindset, different things that go on spiritually and whatnot, all of those are just as important as the outward appearance or bodily function.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think the idea of the small steps and how they compound over time, to me, that resonates deeply, because it's something that I think when you think about self-care, it can be overwhelming, right? If you think about how do you actually implement something, right? And how do you kind of start? Like, where do you even begin? And so, when I think about it, right, and I give an example sometimes about how when I started to really embrace it was really a few years ago, when I just had been really working myself to just I was overworking, really. I was working myself down. I was really like, the burnout was extreme, right? Like, I was working so hard, not really feeling like I was connecting with my personal life, with my wife, and my with everyone else in my personal life. I really just kind of felt like I was sort of turning into like a turtle in a shell, in a sense, and wasn't really, life didn't really feel that great, right? I think if you combine that with the pandemic as well, and how a lot of people were kind of dealing with the mental stresses of that as well. Taking a week off of work and like just not thinking about it, even, and then coming back later and realizing that, like, the work's always going to be there, but my whole body, my whole being felt different after taking that week off, like deciding I'm going to take this time off. I cannot do this like this anymore. And actually taking that step, and just something like taking more vacation time. Like, if you can do that, if you can get away with it. I mean, for me, again, my advice, if I had to give anybody just a little bit of advice, that's the one little piece I would give. So that's how it manifested for me. Curious to know if you have any idea, like any experience with that, like in that realm. Like, have you ever had to deal with, I'll say, burnout, and how did you manage it?
Yes, and that's why I started my entire business. Yeah, I mean, because I originally, I started off as a key holder in a retail store when I was 16 years old. And I kind of fell into that role by default. It was like kind of crazy how it happened. I'll tell you the story about it one day. I won't tell you today. But I really very quickly loved being in leadership. I loved helping other people. I wasn't great at it. I'm going to tell you that right now, because I had to learn a lot of empathy on the way. But I knew I wanted to do it because I just loved it. And I always had like a passion for training people and just like showing them how to be good at what they were doing. Um, and I quickly in my mind was like, I'm going to become a CEO, right? Like, that was just my thing, because again, hello, overachiever, classic, right? I'm like, I'm a
Yep.
key holder. Next step, CEO. And so, I did. I went on that path. By the time I was 20, I was a store manager. By the time I was 25, I was in like these like area manager, regional manager type positions. By the time I was like 30, I was, working for a massive cosmetics company. And then I really quickly like, uh, you know, got promoted there and did a very big job. And so I did it in what I think, what feels like to me, a very small amount of time, because you really, as much as it seems like, oh yeah, it's this, it's like, yeah, but it was like accelerate. It was accelerated because I just pushed
Yeah.
and pushed and pushed and pushed to get where I was going. And that's all I wanted, was to like be up there, right? Like to do that thing and to be able to help people on a mass scale. And when I got there, I had been pushing myself so hard that I started to find that I wasn't enjoying anything that I was doing. And that was really hard for me because I was in a dream job. I mean, I know I've mentioned to you guys before, but it's like I got to sing on the Grand Ole Opry stage. I got to take like a private tour in Shandong and Napa Valley. Like I got to do all kinds of amazing, like just awesome things that you would really, if it was happening to you, like you would really want to be present for those things. But I look back on pictures and stuff and I'm like, ugh, I looked so sad. I was overweight. I was miserable. I think lots of crazy things were happening in my relationships and stuff at that time. Like I was just like not good because I wasn't taking care of myself. And it wasn't just me. Like I saw everybody around me doing the same thing. And having been in, at that point, like when I was going to start my business, I was working for a tech company. I lost a son when I was 6 months pregnant, and that really like kind of triggered this entire reevaluation of my life. I had already known I was like not good, but that devastation really like put me in another place to look at everything from a very different perspective. And once I was there, it was like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like it was almost like I was like my eyes were just like opened to I cannot do this anymore. And I had been in the beauty industry. I was a licensed esthetician and herbalist. Like I did all of this stuff and I loved that stuff. And tech was definitely not for me. It's just that world. I love it personally. Like I'm a nerd for it. I'm learning coding. I'm doing all kinds of weird stuff, but it's just that environment like was not for me. I wanted to go back to like helping people. So that's what basically like triggered my entire venture for the last 4.5 years in my business, because I saw all of the burnout around me and I felt it personally inside of me. And I was like, man, someone needs to help these people, and these people, meaning me also.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. It required like a reevaluation of everything, right? It's what it sounds like to me. Like you had to reassess kind of like what your priorities were. And it sounds like just your whole life sort of, it sounds like that was almost like where that 180 happened. You were like, I need to help these people, and especially myself. Like there needs to be some sort of that care, that self-care, right? We talk about that as like the main topic here. Like you were not taking care of yourself. It's obvious, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying, based on how you're describing this, it sounds like you were. And again, this is not trying to be offensive, but like there was like a short changing happening, right, in your life, and you needed to kind of have that sort of moment of realization, which you did, and now you've changed and sort of sparked that sort of new life, almost like that image of a phoenix, right, kind of rising from ashes, right? That's kind of like I think about like how some people think about that as like almost like a rebirth in a sense, and this is sort of like your like reevaluation of your life was sort of like a reimagining, I guess, of like what really matters, and that sort of was sort of the again, and this is just my trying to like to process it as you described it, and try to like process it in my head. But that sounds like what happened to you, and yeah, I mean, I'm just so grateful that you were able to kind of have that moment of clarity.
Yeah, thank you. I am too. It needs, and don't, I'm not taking offense to you at all, Chris. Like, let's be real. That's the reality of it. And if I didn't realize that about myself and I tried to go out and help people in the shape that I was in, no one should be listening to me. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, like that's just reality. I was in a not a great place, and then it was like I was dealing with trauma and I was doing all kinds of stuff. So I have had to do a lot of self-healing. I've had to do a lot of healing professionally. I've had to like put a lot of things in place for myself, very small amounts of things over time, over the last 4.5 years to even get where I am now. And so it was not an overnight process at all. And that's actually a really valid point and needs to be brought to the surface, because it's important for me, if I'm going to go out and tell people you need to take care of yourself, like I needed to do that for myself first, you know? So if that, I think if people hear, like sometimes like, you know, when you had said like, it's like you had to do that. And especially for yourself, like sometimes I think people hear that as like, oh, that's so selfish. Like that was like, she went in it for herself. It's like, no, self-care is not selfish. Like you have to take care of yourselves and then you can help to take care of other people, right? So it's like, so I think that point really needs to be made and clarified. And so I actually thank you for clarifying that point, because I think it's important as we get into like deeper conversation about that for people to know that, yeah, I was in a weird place. And I did the work to get myself to where I am now. And I'm continuing to do that every day.
Yeah, for sure. I think two things come to mind, right? First off, it's the credibility, the factor, right? You cannot be credible at what you do unless you're actually doing it yourself, right? I think that's kind of like step one. And then two, the point that you made right there, it's worth repeating. Self-care is not selfish. If there's one takeaway from this entire conversation, Amber, what you just said was spot on. I think, and again, this is something that, like, asked me 5-10 years ago, I would have said, come on, like that's just like crunchy hipster stuff out in the Pacific Northwest. Nobody does self-care, right? Like that's what I would have thought, but it's not that. It really isn't. There's so much more to it. And again, it's just worth repeating. And I appreciate you saying that. Like the self-care, it really is not selfish. It's actually the whole idea of like, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Nope.
That's just such a powerful statement to me. And when I first really learned just how true that was, it was kind of like an eye-opening experience for me as well.
Yeah, it really is. And it does sound fluffy, and so that's okay that people think that right off the bat. But when you dig into it and you do the work and you find out what's really going on and what you really can do for yourself and how it can affect every single thing about you and help you from a very holistic perspective, and also like your health. I mean, it trickles into everything. So it's like it really truly is. It's so important, and yeah, it comes out fluffy, but when you dive in, you really you realize what it really is. Truly.
Exactly, and that's a perfect segue to like the next, I think, segment that we should talk about. If we're thinking about, we've talked about some experiences that we've had with self-care and kind of our journeys, or at least some examples of how it's sort of grown in importance in our lives. And so kind of curious if we could dive a little deeper into some practical strategies. Say somebody's listening to this or watching this for the first time and really doesn't know where to begin, or kind of like what really they could do to start. Can you give like some examples of how people can maybe get started, maybe some practical tips of like how they could go about incorporating more self-care into their lives?
Yeah, in really easy ways. First, do you drink enough water during the day? I'm going to tell you right now, most people don't. Most people don't. It's great if you do, but most people don't. That's an easy way to start. Start drinking some water. Nutrition is important. Do you have to overhaul your entire diet overnight? No, but you could add another vegetable or another fruit to your diet tomorrow and go from there, right? Exercise. Again, do you have to go and be doing some kind of like crazy marathon tomorrow? No, but you could take a walk around your neighborhood. It's like supplements are an easy way to go. I am obsessed with magnesium butter. I talk about it all the time because it is so amazing and it does so much for you, and it's the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is take a little bit of magnesium butter, put it on your feet before you go to bed. It helps to knock you out and helps you sleep. It helps with restless legs. It helps with headaches. It helps with all kinds of stuff. But more importantly, 80% of Americans are deficient in magnesium, and magnesium affects all of our systems. It helps us our brains to work better. It helps everything that we do to work better. So it's like, you talking about something for nothing? My goodness, it takes 2 seconds, I've done the math on this for a skincare routine because people always say they don't have time for skincare. And I'm like, you could do a really nice skincare routine in 5 minutes. And 5 minutes of your day is 0.003% of your entire day. Like, yes, I have done the math, people. That is just accurate, right?
Yeah.
So like you want something for nothing, do a quick skincare routine and help your not only your skin and your face, that people always think that's vanity, but it's not. It's actually like skin health, which is helping to keep out viruses, toxins, free radicals like out of your body, because you're making sure that your skin barrier in the most exposed place on your body is taken care of and doesn't have any microchannels. So, okay, let me nerd out on you, but like that's neither here nor there. That in itself, and that health aspect is huge for your body, you know? And then you think about, like, again, magnesium butter, 2 seconds. I mean, the math on that has got to be virtually nothing. So, but it does huge stuff for you. So there's little things that you can do, you know, and there's so many things that you can do. And the other aspect to this is that self-care is really personal for people. So what is self-care for someone, for one person, is not necessarily going to feel like self-care for another. There's also mindsets that you have to get through in order to make yourself to be really good at what you want to do, right? Like going to the gym. Like, it's not easy to go to the gym at first. Trust me, I didn't like it either. Now I'm obsessed with it, but it's like I was like, ugh, like, do I really have to do this? You know? So
Yeah.
it's so personal for people, but there's a lot of ways to go about doing it and to get started. And as you can see, like, lots of really small things that you can do to get started. It doesn't have to be like building Rome in a day.
No, I love the magnesium butter that you said. That's a great idea. I didn't even think about that, but that's been brand new to me.
I'm obsessed. I can't stop using it.
Now
It's changed, seriously.
I'm gonna Google this as soon as we wrap here.
Yeah, I'll send you a thing for it because I have it. And I'm like, and it's not even to show you anything, truly. It's like, I'm telling you right now, it will legitimately change your life. Like,
Yeah,
you will be so excited and happy when you see what it does for you.
that's awesome. So yeah, that's really cool stuff. I again, like what you're talking about though. I think the simple things like actually using drinking more water, and I don't know, even something like just taking care of yourself, like going to the gym more, right? Like, again, and to me, that when I think about going to the gym, I don't always think about it as self-care. So like it takes a little bit of like a mindset shift, like you said, and sort of like, wait a minute, like this is actually totally self-care. And I'll be the first to admit that once I get done with the workout, I feel fantastic. But in the middle of it, or even getting there, getting your foot out the door, like out of the house, and then maybe getting your foot out of the car door and into the gym, totally, those are the toughest parts I think about actually working out.
Yeah, it's a process. It really is. It's a process to get yourself started, and it is a mindset shift. And I always tell people, mindset shifts, one of the most important things you can do for yourself when you want to shift your mindset on something
Mhm,
is to write down your why and
mhm.
really dig into what that why is for you, and like make sure you know what you're doing for, so it's like it's a so for example, if you go to the gym, people will instantly be like, oh, I want to have more muscle, or I want to be skinny, right? Those are like, why do you want to go to the gym? It's like, oh, I want to have these things. Why do you really want to go to the gym? Start peeling back those layers. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot more behind that. It's like, why do you want to be skinny? Why do you want to have more muscle? There's a lot more behind that. And when you dig into that and you find your why and you write it down, you, first of all, statistically writing it down, and also if you write it in black pen, it will help you to remember it. It's a statistically proven thing. Like, so if you write in black pen, right, it's like you write it down, it's helping you to like process and remember. And you write it down, and it's like, okay, you're connected to it, you're now tethered to that, right? It's like if you share it with somebody, now that's even helping you more to be connected to that why. You don't have to, but it does help you in that way. What also it does is, once you have it written down, when you have those days where you put your sneakers on and you don't want to go, right, and you're like, I'll just wait, you can go back to that why and you can read it and you can say to yourself, like, all right, I should go to the gym. Right. And it's like, and the more and more you do that, the more and more your mindset shifts. And when you get really used to going to the gym and doing what you need to do for yourself and you start seeing results, you're going to want to keep going. Trust me. I am
Yeah.
obsessed. Like, and I hated it. I hated it for years. I couldn't get myself to go. I at one point did teach Zumba and P90X. It was like the only other time in my life that I had gotten myself like really fit.
Yeah.
Um, and I was really into it then, but I felt like it was like only those things that I could do, like classes. Like that was the only thing that I could ever do. I could never go to the gym. I said it for years. I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week to strength train like now. And it's like, and
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it. So it's like, I thought forever that it was just like, it just wasn't for me. It's just not like, it's like, no, it's just that it's really hard to break through that mindset. And you have to have something tangible to like connect yourself to it so that when you have those days, you can push yourself to go anyway.
I love that. I love that. Know your why. And yeah, we're willing to have Tony Horton on the podcast if he wants to jump on P90X. A huge fan of that workout style, and I've done that a few times. I mean, you've lived it. You know what I'm talking about. It's actually it's kind of it's a good habit, regardless. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of his sense of humor is pretty ridiculous. So, but that's my sense of humor, so I get it. But yeah, I love the idea of knowing your why, writing it down in black ink. I remember learning this as well scientifically. If they say that if you have a yellow notepad and you're trying to remember something, like even if it's something like rote memorization, just vocabulary, say you're learning a new language. I remember hearing and reading this before, like in some sort of a scientific journal. They say that if you have a yellow notepad and you take notes on this, it's supposed to make it's almost like you're writing in highlighter, right? In a sense,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, it's like highlighting these key words and phrases. And so I love the tip about the black ink, because it's it's my favorite ink as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, it works. I think though, like knowing your why though, it's something that's some people that's useful, and that's something that's a point that people should sort of bring to a bunch of different worlds and realms. I'll say, right, because that also applies to knowing your why on X, right? And like, why are you there? Why are you on the app? And again, I'm confident and I know my why for it, and you know your why as well. I think it's helpful to hear that and to kind of sort of internalize that in different facets of our lives.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like the why, it's like we're using the example of the gym, but it really applies to everything. It really is. It helps you to get buy-in from yourself. It's why as
Exactly.
an educator, I would always explain the why first in everything that we wrote and everything that we were doing, because we needed to get buy-in from people to actually want to do what we were asking them to do, right? So, and it's like, and I mean, there's tons of stuff on this. Simon Sinek is like, right, start with somewhere on there. Start with the why.
Yeah,
It's
start with
like,
why. That's his book.
yeah, like there's like, and it really, and it's true. I mean, if you get that buy-in from yourself, you're going to be able to do what you actually want to do, and it applies to everything. So, and you know what's interesting about mindset too, like, and really quickly, is that mindset, people always think like, oh no, like they shrug it off, like they dismiss it, like, no, that's not it. And it's just why I can't do it. It's like, what? Do you understand what you're saying? What you're saying is what I'm saying. Like when you say that you can't do something, or you don't feel like something is happening, or you don't think that that's going to be what it is, or you have this negative thought process or whatever about it, that's the mindset in itself, right? So it's like, it's funny when people say that, because you're like, you're not breaking through it yet. You know what I'm saying? And it's not to be dismissed. It truly is like something that will absolutely hinder you if you don't figure it out.
Yeah, they say a lot of times that you need to really believe it before you can achieve it. I know it's a phrase, it's a cliche, but you really do need to have that in your head before you can actually reach those heights. I agree with you 100%, Amber. I think it's the mindset shift is really what it requires to kind of break through a lot of these hurdles that we have in our lives. And I think it's spot on. I mean, knowing that why is super important. Again, mindset. Again, if we don't have the right mindset, then none of this actually none of this feels achievable, I'll say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I think this has been a great topic. I do, I would love for us to kind of move into the positive change part of the conversation, because we're sort of already talking about this too, right? If you think about self-care and we talked about going to the gym, and having that positive change physically, but really like sparking positive change in our communities, right, around us, and community. What I mean by that, and I think that the topic, right, it's more of, it can be anywhere. When I say community, it doesn't have to be in the city that you live in. It could be your community on X, on social media. It can be anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be this your city, right, or your neighborhood. Because when I think of community, the first thing I think of is, well, we have a neighborhood association here. Like, of course, we just go there and we recycle cans on the weekend, and I'm having it's more than that. It's broader than that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of like community engagement and why it's important to really make these positive changes.
Yeah, I think, man, community engagement is such a broad concept, because like you're saying, there's so many different communities in your life, and everybody has different ones. You can have a spiritual community, you can have a local community, you can have a digital community, you can have, all different kinds of niche communities that you're a part of, identity community, like all kinds of things that people are a part of, right? And so there's a lot of ways to make positive change within a lot of different communities.
Absolutely.
And again, I think this is something that's so personal to people, because what you spend your time on and what you give back to is usually it's almost like visceral, it's like it's inside of you. It's something that just is so near and dear to you, and it's just very personal. So yeah, so there's a lot of communities that you can look at, and there's a lot of different things that you can do within those communities to spark that change for people, and allow things to trickle out to more people.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think of where we spend our time, where we spend our energy. That really does, I think, tell a story, right? And if you think about, we spend, I know we spend time on Spaces, and we learn from one another, on X, and we grow in that way, and that community. And also, I have this story to tell about community engagement, because not that long ago, and again, just I'm thinking more of just the city or the area where I live, but there was this act of vandalism that occurred in town, or in our neighborhood, like a few blocks away, and it really affected us, right? Because we live in an area where I'm not saying that crime doesn't happen, but it happens. It's a big deal when it happens in our neighborhood. And so we helped to repaint over this home, the vandalism at this home. And what ended up happening was, the group that did the painting, or the repainting, so to speak, we felt almost compelled in a positive way to expand that to, okay, now that we're done with this house, what other house in the neighborhood has some sort of vandalism that hasn't been restored or fixed, or and we started thinking, sort of creating this sort of I don't know, this sort of network of what other home might need maybe a little extra fencing, or what we started really asking ourselves, what other help can we actually provide to our community. It started it was almost like a brainstorming session that occurred while or after we just contributed to this fix. And so again, I just one story to tell about how sometimes when you just start on this community engagement, or this sort of effort to improve your local community, it can